The evening sky had turned a deep purple as Andre Taylor locked up the bookstore where he worked part-time after school. He pulled his jacket tighter against the autumn chill and checked his phone. His mom had texted asking if he could pick up some milk on his way home. No problem. The corner store was only a block out of his way. Andre was tired but satisfied after a productive shift. At 17, he balanced his job with maintaining his spot on the honor roll and being captain of the debate team. His guidance counselor had just helped him finish applications to several colleges, and his future looked bright. With a small smile, he thought about the scholarship essays he still needed to work on when he got home. The streets were quiet in this part of town. Most businesses had closed for the day, though the occasional car passed by, headlights cutting through the growing darkness. Andre walked with purpose, nodding politely to an elderly couple walking their dog. He was well known in the neighborhood. His family had lived here for generations, and his grandmother was something of a local legend for her community organizing work in the 70s. Andre's phone buzzed with a text from his best friend Tyler about their upcoming history project. He stopped under a streetlight to reply, promising to call him later that night to discuss their presentation on the civil rights movement. As he slipped his phone back into his pocket and looked up, he noticed a police cruiser slowing down beside him. The cruiser's window rolled down, revealing Officer Richard Wilson, a cop Andre had seen around the neighborhood but never spoken to directly. "Hey you, hold up a minute," Officer Wilson called out, his voice sharp in the quiet evening air. Andre stopped, a flutter of nervousness in his stomach despite knowing he'd done nothing wrong. "Yes, sir? Is everything okay?" Officer Wilson stepped out of his vehicle, one hand resting on his belt. "Where are you coming from? Where are you headed?" "I'm on my way home from work, sir. I'm just stopping at the corner store to pick up some milk for my mom," Andre replied, keeping his voice steady and respectful like his parents had always taught him. The officer's eyes narrowed as he looked Andre up and down. "Got any ID on you?" Andre nodded and slowly reached for his wallet. "Yes, sir. I have my school ID and my work permit." As he handed them over, Officer Wilson's radio crackled. Andre couldn't make out the full message, but he heard fragments about a robbery at a convenience store about 20 minutes ago, several blocks away. Officer Wilson studied Andre's ID, then looked back at him with increased suspicion. "Where did you say you work again?" "Taylor's Books on Maple Street. I just finished my shift at 7:30, Andre explained, a creeping sense of unease growing in his chest. The officer didn't respond directly, instead speaking into his radio. "I've got a possible suspect matching the description from the 211 at Franklin's Mart. African-American male, late teens, dark hoodie, jeans." Andre's heart began to pound. "Sir, there must be some mistake. I was at work until just—" "Turn around and put your hands behind your back," Officer Wilson interrupted, his voice suddenly harder. "But I didn't do anything," Andre protested, confusion and fear washing over him. "You can call my boss, Mrs. Taylor. She can confirm I was at the bookstore." "I said turn around," Officer Wilson repeated, this time reaching for his handcuffs. "You match the description of a suspect who just robbed Franklin's Mart at gunpoint." Andre's mind raced. Franklin's Mart was at least 15 blocks in the opposite direction from where he'd been. "Sir, that's impossible. I've been at work. Please just call my boss or my parents." Neighbors began to appear on porches and at windows drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Washington, who lived in the blue house on the corner, stepped onto her front lawn. "What's going on?" "That's Andre Taylor, he's a good boy." Officer Wilson ignored her, roughly turning Andre around and securing the handcuffs around his wrists. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As the officer continued reading his rights, Andre felt as if he were in some terrible dream. This couldn't be happening. Not to him. Not when he'd worked so hard to stay on the right path. "Please, Officer Wilson." Andre tried again, his voice shaking now. "Check the cameras at the bookstore. Call Mrs. Taylor, I couldn't have robbed that store." The officer opened the back door of his cruiser. "Save it for the station." By now a small crowd had gathered. Andre spotted his neighbor, Mr. Johnson, pulling out his phone, likely calling Andre's parents. As Officer Wilson guided him into the back seat, Andre caught a glimpse of several people filming the arrest on their phones. "Call my parents," Andre called out to Mr. Johnson, who nodded gravely in response. The drive to the police station was the longest 15 minutes of Andre's life. Through the partition, he could hear Officer Wilson radioing in. describing him as the suspect and saying he'd apprehended him without incident. At the station, Andre was led to a small, brightly lit room with nothing but a metal table and 2 chairs. His handcuffs were removed, but the door was locked behind him. He sat alone for what felt like hours, though his watch told him it was only 45 minutes. Finally, the door opened and Officer Wilson entered with another officer, an older man with salt and pepper hair who introduced himself as Detective Garza. "Andre Taylor," Detective Garza began, opening a folder. "You want to tell us about what happened at Franklin's Mart tonight?" "Nothing happened with me there," Andre insisted, his throat dry. "I was at work until 7:30. You can call my boss, Mrs. Taylor. The store has security cameras. I couldn't have been at Franklin's Mart." Officer Wilson scoffed. "We have an eyewitness who described someone exactly like you. Black male teenager, about 5'10", wearing a dark blue hoodie and jeans. That could be hundreds of people," Andre argued, trying to keep his voice from breaking. "That's not evidence." Detective Garza studied Andre for a moment. "Where were you between 7:30 and 7:55 this evening, walking home from work?" "I texted my mom at 7:35 saying I'd pick up milk. I stopped to text my friend Tyler around 7:50. You can check my phone," Andre explained, a glimmer of hope rising that they might actually listen to him. Officer Wilson shook his head. "Convenient. No witnesses except your mom and friend. What about the security cameras at the bookstore, or the corner store's cameras? They'd show I was nowhere near Franklin's Mart," Andre suggested desperately. The interview continued in circles, with Andre insisting on his innocence and Officer Wilson dismissing every explanation. Detective Garza seemed less convinced of Andre's guilt, but deferred to Wilson, who claimed to have solid evidence. After 2 hours of questioning, the door opened again. This time a woman in a sharp suit entered, followed by Andre's parents, their faces etched with worry and anger. "This interview is over," the woman announced firmly. "I'm Lisa Bennett, Andre's attorney. You've been questioning a minor without his parents or legal representation present." Andre's mother rushed to his side, wrapping her arms around him. "Baby, are you okay? Have they hurt you?" "I'm okay, Mom," Andre assured her, though he felt far from it. His father stood tall, his voice controlled but furious. "My son was at work. We have proof. Mrs. Taylor has already provided a statement and security footage showing Andre leaving the bookstore at 7:30. Franklin's Mart is a 15-minute drive from there. The robbery happened at 7:40. It's physically impossible for him to have been there." Officer Wilson's expression darkened. "The evidence says otherwise." "What evidence?" Lisa Bennett demanded. "Because from what I can see, you've arrested an honor student with no criminal record, based on a vague description that could match thousands of young men in this city." The confrontation continued, with tensions rising. Eventually, Detective Garza pulled Officer Wilson aside for a hushed conversation. When they returned, Garza spoke first. "We're going to hold Andre overnight while we review the evidence. He'll be transferred to juvenile detention in the morning, and there will be a hearing tomorrow afternoon." Andre's mother gasped. "You can't be serious." "He's innocent. The system will determine that, ma'am," Officer Wilson replied coldly. As Andre was led away, his father called after him, "We'll fix this, son." "Don't worry. We'll get you home." But as the cell door closed behind him, Andre wasn't so sure. He sat on the hard bench, wrapping his arms around himself. How had his ordinary evening turned into this nightmare? And what would happen tomorrow? In the darkness of his cell, Andre thought about his college application sitting on his desk at home. He thought about his debate tournament next week. He thought about all the warnings his parents had given him about being careful around police. Warnings he'd always believed were just them being overprotective. Now he understood. Now he knew why his father always tensed up when police cars drove by, why his mother insisted he always keep his receipt when shopping, why his grandfather told those stories about the old days that didn't seem so old anymore. Andre closed his eyes, exhaustion finally overtaking his fear. Tomorrow would come, and with it he hoped the truth. But for tonight, for the first time in his life, he slept behind bars, accused of a crime he didn't commit, while Officer Wilson filled out a report that would change everything. Andre barely slept in the holding cell, the fluorescent lights never fully turned off, casting a sickly glow across the small room. The thin mattress did little to cushion him from the hard metal frame beneath it. But it wasn't physical discomfort keeping him awake, it was fear. Morning came with the harsh sound of keys jangling and the cell door sliding open. A different officer, younger than Wilson but with the same detached expression, handed Andre a tray with what was supposedly breakfast. "Eat up. You're being transferred to juvenile detention in an hour," the officer said flatly. Andre stared at the cold eggs and rubbery toast. His stomach was too knotted with anxiety to feel hunger. "Can I call my parents first?" "Your lawyer's already here. You'll see her before transport." True to his word, the officer returned 30 minutes later and led Andre to a small consultation room where Lisa Bennett waited, her briefcase open on the table in front of her. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept much either. "Andre," she said, standing to greet him.
"How are you holding up?"
He shrugged, trying to appear stronger than he felt. "I'm okay. Have you talked to my parents?" "Just got off the phone with them. They're gathering everything we need for your hearing this afternoon." Lisa gestured for him to sit. "I need to go over a few things with you." Andre slumped into the chair. "Ms. Bennett, I didn't do this. I wasn't anywhere near that store." "I know," she said firmly. "Your boss already provided security footage showing you leaving the bookstore at 7:30. Your mom has your text about picking up milk. But Officer Wilson is pushing hard on this, claiming he has evidence placing you at the scene." "What evidence? That's impossible." Lisa shook her head, her expression troubled. "That's what we need to find out." He's being unusually tight-lipped about it. The prosecutor wouldn't share details yet, just said they have enough to proceed with charges. Andre's heart sank. "So I'm still going to juvenile detention?" "For now, yes. But we're working on getting you released at today's hearing." Lisa leaned forward. "Andre, I need you to tell me exactly what happened yesterday evening. Every detail, no matter how small." Andre recounted his movements step by step, locking up the bookstore, texting his mom, walking toward home, stopping to text Tyler. He described Officer Wilson pulling up beside him. The questions, the handcuffs, everything. Lisa took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Andre finished, she sat back, tapping her pen against her notepad. "Officer Wilson has been with the department for 12 years, she said. "There have been complaints about his conduct before, particularly regarding how he handles cases involving young black men. So why is he still a cop?" Andre asked, anger flaring briefly through his fear. "Good question." Lisa's mouth set in a grim line. "The system doesn't always work the way it should. But we're going to make it work for you." The door opened and the young officer reappeared. "Time to go." Lisa quickly packed her notes. "I'll see you at the hearing. Your parents will be there too. Just stay calm and remember, don't talk to anyone about your case without me present." The juvenile detention center was a low, sprawling building surrounded by high fences topped with razor wire. Inside, it smelled of industrial cleaner and cafeteria food. Andre went through processing in a daze. Fingerprinting, photos, changing into the standard-issue clothes, a brief medical check. The staff wasn't cruel, but they weren't kind either. They processed him with the efficient indifference of people who'd done this hundreds of times before. In the general area, other teens eyed him curiously. Andre kept to himself, finding an empty table in the corner of the common room. He was trying to be invisible when another boy approached and sat across from him. "First time in here?" the boy asked. He was skinny with intelligent eyes and a faded scar across his left eyebrow. Andre nodded cautiously. "I'm David," the boy said. "What are you in for?" "I didn't do anything," Andre replied automatically. David laughed, but it wasn't mocking. "Yeah, heard that before. Even said it myself. But for real, what they got you for?" "They're saying I robbed a convenience store." Andre's voice cracked slightly. "But I was at work when it happened." "They've got the wrong person." David studied him for a moment. "You might be telling the truth. You don't have that look." "What look?" "The one that says you've been here before one way or another." David leaned in. "Word of advice, if you really are innocent, don't expect the system to care. They'll try to get you to take a deal. They'll say it's easier, that you'll get out faster. Don't believe it." Andre was about to respond when a guard called his name. "Taylor, your lawyer's here for your hearing prep." In a small conference room, Lisa waited with a stack of files and Andre's parents. His mother embraced him tightly, and his father gripped his shoulder, eyes shining with unshed tears. "We're going to get you out of here today," his mother promised fiercely. Lisa spread several documents on the table. "The hearing is in 2 hours. I've been going over the discovery materials the prosecutor finally sent over. And? Andre's father asked tensely. Officer, Wilson claims to have security footage from Franklin's Mart showing someone he identifies as Andre entering the store at 7:38 p.m. The robbery occurred at 7:42. He also says there's a partial fingerprint match from the counter. Andre shook his head vigorously. That's impossible. I wasn't there. I know, Lisa said. I've reviewed the footage. The quality is poor, and the person's face is largely obscured by a hood. They're about your height and build, wearing similar clothes, but it's hardly conclusive. As for the fingerprint, it's only a partial match to prints already in the system. My prints aren't in any system, Andre protested. They are now, Lisa reminded him gently. They took them when you were arrested. And partial matches are notoriously unreliable. Andre's father frowned. So why is Wilson so convinced it's Andre? That's what we need to find out, Lisa replied. I've requested the full unedited security footage from Franklin's Mart. They're supposedly sending it over, but it hasn't arrived yet. Can they hold Andre without better evidence? His mother asked. They shouldn't, but it depends on the judge. Lisa turned to Andre. The store clerk gave a statement saying the robber was a young black male in a dark hoodie. That's it. No identifying features, no clear description of his face. Andre felt a chill. Was that all it took? A vague description that could fit thousands of people? There's something else, Lisa continued, her voice lower. I've been doing some digging into Officer Wilson's history. 3 years ago, he was involved in a similar case. Young black teen arrested for a convenience store robbery. The charges were eventually dropped, but not before the kid spent 6 months in detention awaiting trial. The implications hung heavy in the air. Andre's father stood up suddenly, pacing the small room. So you're saying this cop has a pattern? He's targeting black kids? His voice trembled with barely contained rage. I'm saying there are similarities worth investigating, Lisa replied carefully, and I'm going to raise them with the judge today. The hearing was held in a small courtroom within the Juvenile Justice Center. Andre sat beside Lisa at a table facing the judge's bench. His parents were directly behind them. At the other table, a stern-faced woman in a gray suit, the prosecutor, sat next to Officer Wilson, who kept his gaze fixed straight ahead. Judge Rivera, a middle-aged woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair, studied the paperwork before her with a furrowed brow. This is a detention hearing for Andre Taylor. Charged with armed robbery, she began. Ms. Mitchell, the state's position. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the state requests continued detention. The defendant is charged with a violent felony involving a firearm. Officer Wilson has identified him as the perpetrator based on security footage and partial fingerprint evidence. Given the serious nature of the crime, we believe he poses a risk to public safety. Judge Rivera nodded. Ms. Bennett? Lisa rose confidently. Your Honor, we request Andre's immediate release to his parents' custody. The evidence against him is circumstantial at best and possibly manipulated at worst. Andre was at work until 7:30 p.m., as confirmed by his employer and security footage from the bookstore. The robbery occurred at 7:42 p.m., at a location that would take at least 15 minutes to reach from his workplace. She placed a folder on the judge's bench. I've included sworn statements from Andre's employer and time-stamped security images from the bookstore. Additionally, Andre texted his mother at 7:35 p.m. Cell tower data confirms he was still in the vicinity of his workplace at that time, not near Franklin's Mart. Officer Wilson shifted in his seat, whispering something to the prosecutor. As for the alleged security footage, Lisa continued, we've only been provided with grainy, edited clips that show someone of similar height and build, but with no clear view of their face. We've requested the full footage but haven't received it. Judge Rivera turned to the prosecutor. Ms. Mitchell, why hasn't the full security footage been provided to the defense? Technical difficulties with the store's system, Your Honor. We're working on it, Lisa pressed on. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have concerns about Officer Wilson's conduct in this case. There's a documented history of similar arrests involving young black males with minimal evidence. Objection! Ms. Mitchell stood up. Counsel is impugning Officer Wilson's character without basis. I have documentation, Your Honor, Lisa replied calmly, sliding another folder forward. The next 20 minutes were tense as the judge reviewed the materials and questioned both sides. Andre sat rigidly, trying to appear composed while his future hung in the balance. His parents' presence behind him was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Finally, Judge Rivera set down her papers and looked directly at Andre. "Mr. Taylor, based on the conflicting evidence presented, I'm not prepared to dismiss the charges at this time." Andre's heart sank. "However," she continued, "I find the state's evidence insufficient to justify continued detention. You are to be released to your parents' custody pending trial, with the following conditions: weekly check-ins with a juvenile probation officer, a 9 p.m. curfew, and you may not leave the county without the court's permission." Relief flooded through Andre, even as he registered that the nightmare wasn't over. The charges still stood. As they left the courtroom, Officer Wilson brushed past them, his face tight with anger. "This isn't over," he muttered, just loud enough for Andre to hear. Andre's father stepped between them. "No, it's not," he agreed, his voice steady. "But the truth will come out. Count on it." Outside in the pale afternoon sunlight, Andre took his first deep breath in what felt like forever. He was going home for now. But Officer Wilson's warning echoed in his mind. The battle was just beginning. The kitchen table in the Taylor home had become command central. Papers spread across its surface. Court documents, printed emails, notebook pages filled with timelines and questions. Andre sat with his parents and Lisa Bennett, picking at a plate of food his mother had insisted he eat. 2 weeks had passed since his release from juvenile detention. 2 weeks of suspicious glances from neighbors who'd heard about his arrest but not the circumstances. 2 weeks of missed school and hushed phone calls with friends. 2 weeks of his mother crying when she thought he couldn't hear. "The DA's office is still dragging their feet on getting us the complete security footage," Lisa explained, frustration evident in her voice. "They keep claiming technical issues with the store's system." Andre's father scoffed. "For 2 weeks? That's not a technical issue, that's deliberate obstruction." "I agree," Lisa nodded, "which is why I filed a motion to compel yesterday. The judge should rule on it by tomorrow." Andre's mother reached over to squeeze his hand. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" He tried to smile for her sake. "I'm okay. Just want this to be over." The truth was more complicated. Andre felt like he was living in a strange limbo. He wasn't in detention, but he wasn't free either. He couldn't return to school until the case was resolved. The principal had suggested independent study for now, to avoid disruption. His friends tried to be supportive, but there was an awkwardness in their interactions now, a hesitation. "Lisa," Andre's father leaned forward, "tell us honestly, how does this look? What are our chances?" Lisa considered the question carefully. "Their case is weak. The evidence they've shared so far is circumstantial at best, but..." "But what?" Andre prompted. "But Officer Wilson seems unusually invested in this case. He's pushing the prosecutor hard, and without seeing exactly what they claim to have." She shrugged. "Could he be tampering with evidence?" Andre's father asked bluntly. Lisa's expression was grave. "It's a serious accusation, but yes, that's one possibility we're considering. Which is why we need to conduct our own investigation." She pulled out a folder with photos of Franklin's Mart and surrounding businesses. "Tomorrow I'm sending my assistant Kevin to interview people in the area. Check for additional security cameras that might have captured the real perpetrator." "I want to go too," Andre said suddenly. 3 pairs of eyes turned to him in surprise. "Absolutely not," his father said firmly. "Why not? It's about me, my life, and nobody knows what I was wearing that night better than me. If there's footage of someone dressed like me, I need to see it." His mother shook her head. "Baby, it's too risky. What if someone recognizes you from the news? Or what if Officer Wilson sees you? I'll wear a hat, glasses." "Please," Andre pleaded. "I can't just sit here waiting while everyone else fights for me." Lisa considered him thoughtfully. He has a point. Andre might notice details others would miss, and Kevin will be with him the whole time. After much debate, his parents reluctantly agreed with strict conditions. Andre would stay with Kevin at all times. He would wear a disguise. He would return immediately if there was any trouble. The next morning, Andre left the house wearing his father's oversized jacket, a baseball cap pulled low, and non-prescription glasses. Kevin, a law student who worked part-time for Lisa, picked him up 2 blocks away to avoid drawing attention to the Taylor house. "Ready for some detective work?" Kevin asked as Andre climbed into his car. Their first stop was Franklin's Mart. Andre waited in the car while Kevin went inside. pretending to be a customer while casually chatting up the clerk about the robbery. The young woman working the register hadn't been there the night of the incident, but mentioned that Raj, the owner, would be in later that afternoon. Next, they visited neighboring businesses. The laundromat 3 doors down had a security camera facing the street. The manager, a friendly elderly woman named Mrs. Patel, was happy to help once Kevin explained the situation. Such a shame accusing an innocent boy, she tutted, leading them to a small back office where the security system was located. My grandson is about your age, she added, looking at Andre. The police these days, they see a young brown or black boy and make assumptions. She showed them how to access footage from the night of the robbery. Andre and Kevin huddled around the small monitor, scrolling through grainy images until they reached the time frame in question. There, Andre pointed at the screen. At 7:39 p.m., someone in a dark blue hoodie walked past the laundromat, heading toward Franklin's Mart. The quality wasn't great, but one thing was immediately clear to Andre. The person was at least 3 inches shorter than him. That can't be me, he said. Look at how they line up with that mailbox. I'm much taller. Kevin took photos of the screen with his phone. This is good, Andre, really good. Their next break came at the auto parts store across the street. The manager was initially reluctant to help until Kevin mentioned Lisa Bennett's name. Lisa's handling this case? Well, why didn't you say so? The manager, Pete, immediately became more cooperative. She helped my brother beat a bogus DUI charge last year. Officer Wilson was involved in that too. Tried to claim my brother failed a sobriety test when the dash cam showed he passed with flying colors. Pete's security system was more advanced with better camera angles. The footage clearly showed someone in a dark hoodie entering Franklin's Mart at 7:38 p.m. 3 minutes later, the same figure ran out. Face still obscured, but now holding what appeared to be a gun. Can we get a copy of this? Kevin asked. Sure thing. And there's something else you should know. Pete lowered his voice. Wilson came by the day after the robbery asking for my footage too. I gave him a copy just like I'm giving you. But he seemed disappointed, like he was hoping I didn't have cameras. By mid-afternoon, they'd gathered evidence from 4 businesses with security cameras. None of the footage provided a clear view of the robber's face, but several key details emerged. The suspect was noticeably shorter than Andre, moved with a distinct limp that Andre didn't have, and wore shoes that were completely different from Andre's worn work sneakers. Their final stop was Franklin's Mart itself. The owner, Raj, was behind the counter when they arrived. Kevin introduced himself as Lisa's assistant, careful not to mention Andre's presence. I've been trying to tell the police the same thing for 2 weeks, Raj said after hearing why they were there. The boy they arrested doesn't match who I saw. Not even close. Andre, who had been pretending to browse the snack aisle, froze. You saw the robber? Kevin asked. Of course I saw him. It's my store. I was in the back office watching the security feed. When I saw him pull out the gun, I triggered the silent alarm. Did you tell the police this? Many times. I told that officer, Wilson, that the robber was much shorter than the boy in the news. I told him the robber had a limp from an old injury. He's a local troublemaker I've had to kick out before, but Wilson kept insisting it was this other kid. Kevin glanced meaningfully at Andre, who had edged closer while keeping his face partly turned away. Mr. Raj, Kevin said carefully, would you be willing to give a statement to our attorney? And possibly testify if needed? Raj nodded firmly. Yes, this isn't right. I know who robbed my store and the police are going after the wrong person. As they left Franklin's Mart, Andre felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. They had evidence. They had a witness. Maybe this nightmare would end soon. That hope was short-lived. As they approached Kevin's car, a police cruiser pulled up alongside them. Officer Wilson stepped out, his gaze immediately locking onto Andre despite the disguise. Well, Wilson said, a cold smile spreading across his face. Andre Taylor. Interesting to find you here at the scene of the crime. Kevin stepped forward. Officer Wilson, I'm Kevin Mills, assistant to Lisa Bennett. Andre is here as part of our legal investigation, which he has every right to conduct. Is that so? Wilson's eyes narrowed. Looks to me like witness intimidation. The store owner just happens to change his story after your visit. Raj's story hasn't changed. Andre found the courage to speak. You just never listened to him. Wilson's hand moved to rest on his belt near his handcuffs. "You're violating the terms of your release by interfering with witnesses." "That's absolutely false," Kevin retorted, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling Ms. Bennett right now." "Go ahead," Wilson shrugged. "But your client here is coming with me for questioning." A small crowd had begun to gather, several people pointing their phones at the confrontation. Andre recognized a few faces from school, including Tyler's older brother, who worked at the pharmacy down the street. "Officer Wilson," Kevin's voice was steady as he recorded the interaction. "On what grounds are you detaining Andre?" "He's complied with all terms of his release." "New evidence has come to light," Wilson replied vaguely. "What evidence?" Andre demanded, fear mixing with anger in his chest. Wilson stepped closer. "Evidence that you've been lying this whole time. We have a witness who saw you near Franklin's Mart that night." "That's impossible," Andre said. "I was at work, then walking home." "Your witness is either mistaken or lying." Wilson reached for Andre's arm. "We'll sort it out at the station." Before he could grab him, a new voice cut through the tension. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, officer." Lisa Bennett strode toward them, her expression thunderous. Behind her was Judge Rivera, who had apparently been having lunch at the cafe across the street when the commotion began. "Ms. Bennett," Wilson acknowledged stiffly. "Judge Rivera." "Officer Wilson," the judge said, her voice clipped. "Would you mind explaining what's happening here?" "Just doing my job, Your Honor. Following up on new evidence." "By harassing my client in public?" Lisa challenged. "Without contacting his legal counsel first?" "Judge Rivera and I were just discussing the motion to compel the complete security footage from Franklin's Mart when we heard the commotion." Wilson's confident demeanor faltered slightly. "Your Honor, I was merely—" "Save it for the courtroom, officer," Judge Rivera interrupted. "Ms. Bennett, I'm granting your motion to compel. The prosecution will provide complete, unedited security footage from all angles within 24 hours. She turned to Wilson. "And I suggest you proceed with extreme caution, officer. I'm starting to have serious concerns about the handling of this case." As Wilson retreated to his cruiser, Andre released a shaky breath. Lisa placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "You okay?" she asked softly. Andre nodded, watching Wilson drive away. "Better now. And we found something important today." Lisa smiled. "I know, Kevin texted me everything. We're getting closer to the truth, Andre." But as they walked back to their cars, Andre couldn't shake the chill that had settled in his bones. Officer Wilson wasn't giving up, and something told him the worst was yet to come. The conference room at Lisa Bennett's small law office buzzed with tension. Andre sat between his parents, watching as Lisa and Kevin spread evidence across the large table. 3 weeks had passed since their confrontation with Officer Wilson outside Franklin's Mart. 3 weeks of gathering statements, reviewing footage, and building their case. "Let's go through everything one more time," Lisa said, pulling out a marker to write on the whiteboard. "The trial starts Monday, and we need to be absolutely prepared." After Judge Rivera's order, the prosecution had finally handed over the complete security footage from Franklin's Mart. What they found confirmed their suspicions. The full footage clearly showed a person much shorter than Andre, with a distinctive limp, wearing similar but different clothing. Most importantly, at one point the robber's hood slipped back, revealing a glimpse of his face. "This is what Wilson didn't want us to see," Kevin said, pointing to a freeze frame of that moment. "He edited this part out of the footage he submitted as evidence." Andre leaned forward, studying the grainy image. The face wasn't completely clear, but enough was visible to show it definitely wasn't him. "Do we know who this actually is?" Andre's father asked. Lisa nodded. "Based on Raj's description and our own investigation, we believe it's a local guy named Thomas Reed. He has a history of petty theft and was recently released from juvenile detention himself. He walks with a limp from a motorcycle accident last year." "Have the police arrested him?" Andre's mother asked. "No." Lisa's expression hardened. "In fact, when we provided this information to the DA's office, Officer Wilson apparently claimed Reed has an alibi for that night." "Let me guess," Andre's father said bitterly. "Wilson verified this alibi himself?" "Exactly," Lisa confirmed. "Something doesn't add up." Wilson has been unusually fixated on pinning this on Andre, even when evidence points elsewhere. Andre had been quietly listening, but now he spoke up. "I think I might know why." All eyes turned to him. "Remember how I said Wilson recognized me right away, even with my disguise?" Andre continued. At first I thought maybe he just had a good memory for faces. But what if it's more than that? What if he already knew me before that night? His father frowned. How would he know you? You've never been in trouble. Not me directly, Andre said slowly, pieces falling into place as he spoke. Remember last spring when Uncle Ray got pulled over on his way to our house? He said the officer was unnecessarily aggressive, threatened to arrest him for resisting when he wasn't doing anything wrong. You filed a formal complaint with the department. His father's eyes widened in recognition. Wilson. The officer's name was Wilson. Lisa quickly tapped on her laptop, searching through files. You're right. I requested Wilson's disciplinary records as part of our preparation. There's a complaint filed by Raymond Taylor backed by a statement from... She looked up at Andre's father. Michael Taylor. The complaint was dismissed, but it remained in Wilson's file. So this is revenge? Andre's mother whispered, horror and anger mixing in her voice. He's trying to destroy our son's life because of a complaint? It fits his pattern, Kevin added. I've been looking into Wilson's history more deeply. There are at least 3 other cases where he's targeted young men from families who had previous run-ins with him, or who filed complaints. Lisa's face was grim. This changes our strategy. We're not just defending Andre anymore. We're exposing Wilson's pattern of misconduct. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Andre barely slept, running through scenarios in his mind, practicing his testimony with Lisa. By Monday morning, as he put on the suit his grandmother had bought him for the occasion, his stomach was tied in knots. You look handsome, his mother said from the doorway, her eyes bright with unshed tears. And so grown up, Andre attempted a smile. I don't feel grown up. I feel scared. She crossed the room and straightened his tie. Being scared and being grown up aren't opposites, baby. Being grown up is doing what you need to do even when you're scared. What if it doesn't work? He asked, voicing the fear that had been haunting him. What if they believe Wilson over us? His mother took his face in her hands. Then we appeal. We keep fighting. We never stop until the truth comes out. She kissed his forehead. But I believe in Lisa and I believe in you. The truth is on our side. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and community members. Word had spread about the case, turning it into a lightning rod for discussions about police misconduct and racial bias in the justice system. Andre kept his head down as Lisa guided him through the crowd, his parents forming a protective barrier around him. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Andre had imagined from TV shows. Judge Rivera sat at the bench, her expression neutral as she watched the proceedings. The prosecutor, Ms. Mitchell, looked tense, shuffling through papers with quick, nervous movements. And then there was Officer Wilson, sitting ramrod straight beside the prosecutor, his face a mask of professional detachment. When he glanced at Andre, there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Not just anger, but something deeper. Something personal. The trial began with opening statements. Ms. Mitchell presented the prosecution's case, her voice confident despite the shakiness Andre had observed earlier. The evidence will show that on October 12th, Andre Taylor entered Franklin's Mart, brandished a weapon and demanded cash from the register. Security footage places him at the scene, and physical evidence links him to the crime. This was a premeditated act by a young man who thought he could get away with it. Lisa's opening statement was measured but powerful. The defense will prove not only that Andre Taylor is innocent, but that Officer Richard Wilson deliberately targeted him, manipulated evidence, and lied under oath, all as part of a disturbing pattern of misconduct motivated by personal vendetta. We will show that Wilson edited security footage to hide the real perpetrator's identity, ignored eyewitness statements that contradicted his narrative, and has a history of similar actions against young black men, particularly from families who have filed complaints against him. Judge Rivera's eyebrows rose slightly at these accusations. Ms. Mitchell shifted uncomfortably in her seat. And Wilson's jaw tightened, a vein pulsing in his temple. The prosecution presented their case first. The edited security footage, the vague eyewitness description, the partial fingerprint that supposedly matched Andre's. As Ms. Mitchell questioned Wilson on the stand, Andre noticed how carefully she phrased her questions, never asking about the complete footage or specific details that might expose inconsistencies. Officer Wilson, Ms. Mitchell concluded, based on your professional experience, Do you have any doubt that the defendant committed this robbery? Wilson looked directly at Andre as he answered. None whatsoever. When it was Lisa's turn for cross-examination, she approached Wilson with calm confidence. Officer Wilson, why didn't you include the complete security footage in your initial evidence submission? Wilson didn't flinch. Technical issues with the store's system only allowed us to extract portions initially. Yet Mr. Raj, the store owner, provided us with the complete footage within hours of being asked. Curious, isn't it? I can't speak to that. Lisa picked up a folder. Officer Wilson, are you familiar with the name Raymond Taylor? A barely perceptible twitch crossed Wilson's face. I don't recall. He's Andre's uncle. Last spring, you pulled him over a few blocks from the Taylor home. The incident resulted in a formal complaint against you filed by Andre's father, Michael Taylor. I deal with many traffic stops and complaints. I can't remember everyone, Lisa pressed on. Yet you immediately recognized Andre on the street that night, even though you'd never interacted with him directly before. How do you explain that? Good memory for faces. Part of police training. Or perhaps, Lisa suggested, you recognized him because you'd seen him in family photos during your background check on the Taylors after they filed their complaint. Objection. Ms. Mitchell stood. Counsel is speculating. Sustained, Judge Rivera ruled. Rephrase, Ms. Bennett, Lisa nodded. Officer Wilson, did you conduct any investigation into Thomas Reed as a potential suspect? Wilson's expression hardened. Reed had an alibi. Yes, from his cousin who works at the gas station. Did you verify this alibi with anyone else? Check security footage from the gas station? Interview any other witnesses who might have seen Reed there? The alibi was credible. More credible than a store owner who explicitly told you the robber wasn't Andre. More credible than security footage showing the perpetrator was several inches shorter than Andre. More credible than time-stamped evidence placing Andre at work when the robbery occurred. Wilson's calm facade began to crack. The evidence pointed to Taylor. The evidence you chose to see pointed to Taylor, Lisa corrected. She picked up another folder. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Officer Wilson's disciplinary record, including 3 previous cases with striking similarities to Andre's situation. As Lisa outlined these cases, all involving young black men from families who had previous interactions with Wilson, all based on questionable evidence, all eventually dismissed but not before causing significant damage to the accused, Andre watched the jury's reactions. Confusion gave way to concern, then to something that looked like anger. Wilson's testimony grew increasingly defensive. When Lisa played the complete security footage side by side with Wilson's edited version, highlighting the crucial moments he'd removed, murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Officer Wilson, Lisa asked, her voice steady, did you edit this footage to remove segments that would exonerate Andre Taylor? Absolutely not, Wilson insisted, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Then how do you explain these discrepancies? Technical issues, as I said before. Technical issues that somehow only affected portions showing the perpetrator's face and physical characteristics that clearly differ from Andre's? By the time Lisa finished her cross-examination, Wilson's credibility had visibly crumbled. Ms. Mitchell tried to repair the damage during redirect, but her questions felt half-hearted, as if she too had begun to doubt her case. When court adjourned for the day, Andre felt cautiously hopeful. His parents hugged him tightly outside the courtroom. You're doing great, his father whispered. Just one more day. As they walked toward the exit, Andre spotted Officer Wilson in an intense conversation with Ms. Mitchell. The officer's face was flushed with anger. When he noticed Andre watching, his expression changed to something harder, more determined. Tomorrow's the big day, Lisa told Andre as they parted ways. You'll take the stand, then we'll bring in our witnesses, Raj, Mrs. Patel, and the others who saw the real robber. Get some rest tonight. But as Andre climbed into his parents' car, the look in Wilson's eyes stayed with him. This wasn't over. The officer wasn't giving up. And something told Andre that tomorrow would bring one final desperate attempt to salvage the false case against him. What Wilson might do, Andre couldn't guess. But for the first time since this nightmare began, he felt ready to face it. The truth was coming to light piece by piece. All he needed to do was stand firm for one more day. Morning sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows as Andre took the stand. His heart pounded so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. The wooden chair felt uncomfortable beneath him as he raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. Lisa gave him an encouraging nod as she approached. They had practiced his testimony for hours, but now that the moment had arrived, Andre's mouth felt dry. "Andre," Lisa began gently, "please tell the court where you were on the evening of October 12th between 7 and 8 p.m. Taking a deep breath, Andre recounted his movements that night, closing up the bookstore at 7:30, texting his mom about picking up milk, walking toward home. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, the familiar details grounding him. "Did you at any point that evening enter Franklin's Mart?" Lisa asked. "No," Andre replied firmly. "I wasn't anywhere near that store." "When did you first encounter Officer Wilson?" "Around 7:50 p.m. I was checking a text from my friend Tyler when Officer Wilson pulled up beside me." As Andre described his arrest and subsequent detention, he noticed several jurors shaking their heads. One older woman looked particularly troubled, her eyes darting between Andre and Officer Wilson, who sat stone-faced at the prosecution table. Ms. Mitchell's cross-examination was surprisingly brief. She seemed hesitant, almost reluctant as she questioned him about his clothing that night and his route home. "No further questions," she concluded after just 5 minutes, avoiding eye contact with Wilson. Next came the parade of defense witnesses. Raj, the store owner, testified that he had told Wilson repeatedly that Andre wasn't the robber. "I know who did it," Raj stated firmly. "It was Thomas Reed. He's come into my store causing trouble before. The man who robbed me was shorter than this boy, had a limp, and I saw his face when his hood slipped back. I told the officer this many times. Mrs. Patel from the laundromat and Pete from the auto parts store confirmed that their security footage showed someone who couldn't possibly be Andre. Kevin testified about their investigation and Wilson's attempt to detain Andre outside Franklin's, Mart, Andre's boss. Mrs. Taylor, no relation, provided a rock-solid alibi, presenting employee logs and security footage showing Andre leaving the bookstore at 7:30 p.m. "Andre is one of my most reliable employees," she added. "He's never been late, never called out without notice, never given me any reason to doubt his character." By mid-afternoon, Lisa called her final witness, a forensic video analyst who had examined both versions of the security footage. "In my professional opinion," the analyst concluded, "the footage provided by Officer Wilson was deliberately edited to remove portions that would have exonerated the defendant. This was not the result of technical issues as claimed. As the day wore on, Andre noticed something strange. Officer Wilson kept checking his phone, then whispering to someone seated in the back of the courtroom, a burly man in plain clothes whom Andre didn't recognize. Wilson seemed increasingly agitated, his leg bouncing under the table. When court recessed briefly before closing arguments, Lisa noticed it too. "Something's up with Wilson," she murmured to Andre as they huddled in the hallway. "He's planning something." "What should we do?" Andre asked. "Stay alert. Whatever it is, we'll handle it." The break ended too soon. As everyone returned to their seats, Wilson and the unknown man were still deep in conversation near the courtroom doors. Judge Rivera called for closing arguments. Ms. Mitchell went first, her closing notably less forceful than her opening statement. She stuck to the basic facts of the robbery but skimmed over the inconsistencies in Wilson's evidence. While there are some questions about the identification, she concluded half-heartedly, the state believes there is still sufficient evidence to find the defendant guilty. When Lisa rose for her closing, the courtroom fell completely silent. She didn't immediately approach the jury box but instead stood directly in front of Officer Wilson. "This case was never about a convenience store robbery," she began, her voice clear and strong. "This case is about abuse of power, about a police officer who used his badge to pursue a personal vendetta against a family who dared to file a complaint against him." She walked slowly toward the jury, making eye contact with each member. "You've seen the evidence. You've seen how Officer Wilson edited security footage to hide the truth. You've heard from witnesses who tried to tell him Andre wasn't the robber. You've heard how he ignored the real suspect because it didn't fit the story he wanted to tell." Lisa held up the complete security footage still frame, showing the actual robber's face. "This isn't Andre Taylor. We all know it. Even Officer Wilson knows it. Yet he was willing to destroy a young man's life, to rob him of his future, of his college dreams, of his reputation, all because his father had the audacity to stand up for what's right." As Lisa built toward her powerful conclusion, the courtroom doors suddenly burst open. A young man was led in by two officers, limping slightly as he walked. Andre recognized him immediately from the security footage. Thomas Reed whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. Judge Rivera banged her gavel. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" she demanded. One of the officers stepped forward. "Your Honor, we need to place something on the record immediately. This is Thomas Reed. He was just arrested attempting to rob another convenience store across town. During processing, he confessed to the Franklin's Mart robbery as well." All eyes turned to Wilson, whose face had drained of color. The burly man he'd been whispering with earlier had disappeared. "Your Honor," Lisa said, connecting the dots. "I believe Officer Wilson orchestrated this interruption to create reasonable doubt. He knew his case was falling apart." "That's a serious accusation." "Ms. Bennett," Judge Rivera replied. "With respect, Your Honor,
I believe Mr. Reed's phone records will show contact with Officer Wilson today."
I'm also willing to bet the officer who just brought him in is not from this jurisdiction and may have been brought in by Wilson's friend who was, sitting in the gallery earlier." Judge Rivera's expression darkened. "Officer Wilson, surrender your phone to the court bailiff immediately." "You can't," Wilson began. "I can and I am," the judge cut him off. "Bailiff, the phone." A tense silence fell as the bailiff took Wilson's phone. Judge Rivera ordered a brief recess while court officers secured the device and escorted Reed to a holding room. When court resumed 30 minutes later, the atmosphere had changed completely. The second officer who had brought in Reed admitted under questioning that he was Wilson's former partner from another precinct. Reed himself confirmed that someone matching Wilson's friend's description had offered him a deal, confessed to this robbery in exchange for help with his current charges, and Wilson's phone contained text messages outlining the entire plan. What followed was unlike anything Andre had ever seen. Judge Rivera, her voice tight with controlled fury, dismissed all charges against Andre and ordered Wilson taken into custody for witness tampering, evidence manipulation, and obstruction of justice. "This court has witnessed one of the most egregious abuses of police power I have ever seen," she declared. "Mr. Taylor, on behalf of the justice system, I offer you my sincerest apologies for what you have endured." The courtroom erupted in applause. Andre's parents enveloped him in a tearful embrace. Lisa beamed at them, exhausted but triumphant. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them. Andre's father stepped forward. "Today the system worked the way it's supposed to," he said, "but we can't forget that it almost didn't. How many other young men don't have the resources we had? How many don't have a lawyer like Lisa Bennett fighting for them? How many are sitting in cells right now, victims of the same kind of injustice?" Andre found his voice too. "I lost weeks of my life. I nearly lost my future. All because one officer decided I was guilty before he ever met me. This can't keep happening." In the days that followed, Andre's case became a rallying cry for police accountability. Local news stations ran special reports on Wilson's history of misconduct. Other families came forward with similar stories. The police department announced a comprehensive review of Wilson's past cases and new policies for evidence handling. For Andre, life slowly began returning to normal. He went back to school where he was greeted with support from teachers and most of his classmates. College acceptance letters arrived, including one from his dream school offering a full scholarship. But some things had changed forever. Andre's view of the world, of justice, of his place in society, all transformed by his ordeal. When his history teacher asked the class to write about a pivotal moment in their lives, Andre chose to write about his case. "I used to think that the truth would always come out in the end," he wrote. "Now I know that the truth needs champions, people willing to dig for it, fight for it, and stand by it even when it would be easier to look away. I don't know yet what I want to do with my life, but I know it will involve being one of those champions." 6 months after the trial, Andre sat in the back of a different courtroom, watching as Wilson faced his own charges. The former officer looked smaller somehow, diminished without his uniform and badge. Lisa slipped into the seat beside Andre. "You didn't have to come today," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," Andre replied. "I needed to see it through to the end." As the judge entered and everyone rose, Andre felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. The nightmare was truly over. Wilson had tried to steal his future, but instead had inadvertently given Andre a new purpose. The college acceptance letter in his backpack was for a pre-law program. One day, Andre would stand where Lisa had stood. Fighting for truth and justice one day, he would make sure another innocent young person didn't have to face what he had faced, and that, he realized, was the most powerful victory of all.